Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today we've got a very detailed forecast update coming your way on severe thunderstorms that are expected to develop across today and tomorrow across much of southeastern Queensland and into the northeast of New South Wales. We're also going to talk about some heavy rainfall that's possible across New South Wales and give a tropical update as well later on the forecast update, and then we'll take a look at a monster hurricane that's expected to impact the United States in 2 days' time. That is not a story that you want to be missing out on, and all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're getting closer and closer to 20,000 subscribers, and all support is much appreciated. So take a look at the southeast of Queensland right now. You can already start to see showers and storms blowing up through parts of the Sunshine Coast. We did have a thundercell move through parts of Hervey Bay earlier on this morning, and that is since eased off as it moves across Fraser Island and out towards the ocean. But we're going to start to see some thundercells fire up outside of Roma and the general area in the southeastern part of Queensland over the coming couple of hours. And you can already start to see some speckled cloud now really starting to blow up around the Bow Desert, Toowoomba and Ipswich sort of area outside of Brisbane, and these are the precursor clouds to the thunderstorms that are going to blow up throughout the course of tonight. So yesterday we saw substantial severe thunderstorms move through parts of the Sunshine Coast, much more severe and intense than expected yesterday, which is just telling me that today, whatever is on the forecast, likely going to end up being slightly worse than that. And you can already see on the forecast, compared to yesterday, they have upped the intensity on the thunderstorms here. This thunderstorms certainly do look to be a little bit more intense than what they were on yesterday's forecast, driven by warm temperatures, high levels of humidity, and a lot of instability in the atmosphere, especially this afternoon around the Sunshine Coast in the immediate area of Brisbane as well, out towards the western suburbs. We could be seeing some substantial severe thunderstorms fire up. Now, the danger zone is going to be between 1 and 6 p.m. Between that time, we're expecting quite a few severe thunderstorms to fire up, especially along the Sunshine Coast, but we can't be riding out severe thunderstorms in the western suburbs of Brisbane, out towards Bow Desert and Ipswich, and even down towards the Gold Coast as well, although the chances are smaller around the Scenic Rim and the Mount Tamborine sort of area. In the next couple of hours, we'll also see the chance of severe thunderstorms outside of Chinchilla, Roma, and south of Taroom. You can see them here on the forecast. They're expected to fire up in pretty dramatic fashion in the coming couple of hours as well, so we're going to have to watch that area very closely before they blow out later on this afternoon, moving up in towards the Sunshine Coast, and by later on this evening, they move through Maroubra and up towards Hervey Bay and Fraser Island and do weaken off before round 2 comes through tomorrow. Now let's talk about the risks tonight before we break down tomorrow's weather forecast. We are talking about severe thunderstorms. I'm expecting at least 2 or 3 thunderstorms to go severe warned later on this afternoon. Like I said, most likely on the Sunshine Coast, and when they do go severe warned, it's going to be for damaging winds and most likely large hailstones. There will be heavy pockets of rainfall, especially around the Sunshine Coast and the Gympie area. We could be seeing accumulations top out at around 50 millimeters across 30 minutes or 45 minutes across some of those areas, but I reckon the risk of heavy rainfall is slightly reduced compared to what thunderstorms normally do fire up across parts of the Sunshine Coast. I reckon the chance of substantial rainfall accumulations aren't there this afternoon and evening, and that's kind of reciprocated by the forecast here. You can see lots of thunderstorms, but in terms of rainfall, not an awful lot has been registered on the forecast models, and just throughout the course of today, you can see rainfall accumulations until midnight tonight really don't end up being that much. You can see peak accumulations to about 20 millimeters outside of Kingaroy and Gympie. That's really not much, and again, there will be much more rainfall that does fall. This is a forecast, and forecasts are generally very wrong on the rainfall front for thunderstorm events. However, again, it just kind of gives you an idea that we're not expecting an awful lot of rainfall from tonight, and as such, heavy rainfall from these severe thunderstorms isn't as much of a risk as the large hailstones and damaging winds. Also, just to add, tornadoes, I'm not really kind of expecting a massive tornado outbreak. Certainly wouldn't be expecting a tornado outbreak at all across Australia, but there is the chance of some twisters that do spin up from supercell thunderstorms, but I reckon the chance is very low and not really worth worrying about. But around the Gympie area, I would not be surprised if we got reports of a couple of funnel clouds or some twisters. They will be very weak, very isolated, and they're more likely not to happen than they are to happen. It's going to be Wednesday, which leads us very nicely on into tomorrow's forecast, where the chance of tornadoes is there. Now, tomorrow's thunderstorm setup is better than today's. So there's going to be the added element of cool, moist air streaming in from a southeasterly flow from the Tasman Sea. Now, this cool, moist air is going to keep temperatures slightly cooler along the coastline, and as such, we're expecting severe thunderstorms to fire up further inland and not so much along the Queensland coastline. So this now becomes more of an interior Queensland event into the Capricorn district around Emerald, Dingo, Rolleston, and even down towards Roma and St. George. We could be seeing some severe thunderstorms fire up. In the morning, we will continue to see showers and the odd storm fire up along a trough line along the Sunshine Coast. We could also be seeing some isolated showers around the Brisbane metro area, and potentially potentially 15 millimeters could fall before the 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning around Brisbane and the Gold Coast. There still will be some storms lingering in the area, and these storms will linger into the afternoon and evening hours, but they will be non-severe, especially around the Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast area. The thunderstorms expected to remain non-severe, but along a dry line that's going to develop across central parts of interior Queensland, extending from Hughenden down towards Emerald, Rolleston. And I believe this is the George Highway that runs through this part of Queensland, through Rolleston down towards Roma and St. George. That's where the thunderstorms are going to be firing up along, and they could be severe. We're expecting some pretty nasty thunderstorms to fire up from about midday onwards tomorrow, and these thunderstorms here, as you can see, they're going to be the full 9 miles. They're going to be severe warned for heavy rainfall, damaging winds, and large hailstones, especially if you get further inland. And then later on in the night, we're going to be seeing these thunderstorms transition to high precipitation squall storms and move closer to the coastline up towards Ogmore and Rockhampton. Now, these high precipitation storm modes will be bringing the straight line damaging wind threat and some isolated pockets of moderate to heavy rainfall and some more widespread pockets of rainfall accumulations between 10 and 25 millimeters rather, and some significant falls are possible along the Queensland coastline. Now, along the trough line as well, we also need to be talking about the rainfall threat. Later on tomorrow night, we're going to see a second round of thunderstorms fire up along the Queensland Sunshine Coast north of Brisbane and up towards Hervey Bay, and we could be seeing some significantly strong thunderstorms later on in the evening hours of tomorrow in the immediate southeastern corner of Queensland around Chinchilla and Kingaroy. We could be seeing some strong thunderstorms there late on Wednesday afternoon and evening, and then later on Wednesday night we'll be seeing some heavy rainfall develop along the Sunshine Coast. But it looks like for the most part it gives Brisbane and the Gold Coast a miss, but it's not going to miss it by much, so we will revisit this in tomorrow's forecast and see what the forecast is for Brisbane and the Gold Coast, because there could be some heavy rainfall there tomorrow. Now, back to these thunderstorms here. In terms of total rainfall accumulations, we are talking about some pretty heavy falls throughout the course of Wednesday, and just over that 24-hour period across Wednesday, we could be seeing falls up towards 50 millimeters outside of Taroom, Dingo, and Emerald. Now, of course, with thunderstorms, the rainfall is going to be very unpredictable, as we have already talked about in this video. So there will be some significant falls here and there, and then places that completely miss out on thunderstorms and rainfall altogether. Where the heaviest falls are, we could be seeing up towards 75 millimeters of rainfall across that 24-hour period to Thursday 9 a.m. and I would not be surprised if we saw accumulations up towards 100 millimeters. So if you do live in a flood-prone area or a location that already has saturated soil, especially down in towards parts of southeastern Queensland, 100 millimeters across a 2-hour period would cause some substantial flooding problems indeed. And again, later on Wednesday evening and into early Thursday morning, we could be seeing some very heavy rainfall along the Sunshine Coast that could cause some pretty significant flooding, and I would not be surprised if we were waking up Thursday morning to accumulations up towards 100, potentially 120 millimeters, which is vastly more than what the forecast is calling for in this video. But again, just considering the mountainous topography of the Sunshine Coast and into the northern suburbs of Brisbane, we could be seeing some pretty substantial rainfall accumulations blow out very quickly there. And it's reciprocated between other forecast models as well. You can see the Axis G3 and the GFS calling for some heavy falls late Wednesday evening and into early Thursday morning along the Sunshine Coast. Again, still from thunderstorms, but it's most likely going to be more of a rainfall event as opposed to a severe thunderstorm event. So Wednesday night into Thursday morning could be very, very wet indeed across parts of southeastern Queensland. That's talk for another video today. I just wanted to hammer home the thunderstorm details. It is a very favourable environment for thunderstorms, especially severe thunderstorms later on tonight into tomorrow afternoon as well. We're going to have some pretty nasty cells fire up. I can already feel it. You can see convective available potential energy. You can think of this as how much fuel there is in the atmosphere for thunderstorms to make the most of. There are some high values, especially for this time of the year, along the southeastern corner of Queensland, especially immediately inland from Brisbane, and then up along the Sunshine Coast, and even the central Queensland coast between Bundaberg and Rockhampton. There are some big values today and tomorrow for thunderstorms to make the most of, and this looks very, very concerning indeed, coupled with warm air, very high humidity values, perfect conditions and perfect winds in the upper atmosphere. We've got a pretty nasty setup in for us on Tuesday and Wednesday. And this is not fear-mongering at all. This is a valid forecast now. The Bureau of Meteorology has been calling for this for quite a while, and a lot of other forecasting agencies are hammering home the severity, or the potential severity of these thunderstorms. But I don't want people to panic. I don't want you to freak out from weather like this. It is nasty weather that's coming through, but if you prepare adequately, there is very little risk to homes and property. Make sure you are inside. You're not driving around in the afternoon hours. If you are unsure, make sure you get yourself into your home, into a sturdy room if weather is really nasty indeed. And if you do go tornado warned, which I don't believe anywhere along the Queensland area is going to go warned for tornadoes from these thunderstorms, then get yourself into an interior bathroom. But again, I don't really feel like that's going to be a threat at this time. I really just don't see tornadoes firing up in a dramatic fashion across southeastern Queensland. However, that is not to say that one or two aren't possible at this time. That's a lot of talk for southeastern Queensland. Let's move it over into the central parts of Queensland and into parts of New South Wales as well, where this weekend we do have a bit of a rainfall event expected to fire up. We were talking about this in yesterday's forecast, and it has since been back down on the forecast, but from Saturday onwards we could see a few thunderstorms develop across central parts of New South Wales, which could turn into a more widespread thunderstorm / rainfall event throughout Sunday and Monday, and you can see a couple of good spots of rainfall expected across more central parts of New South Wales and into the southwestern corner of Queensland. And you can see it here on the rainfall forecast between midday Sunday and midday Tuesday. Over that 48-hour period, there are some good rainfall accumulations possible. Again, we've seen a dramatic change in the forecast again from what we were talking about yesterday. The Axis G3 still not expecting any rainfall across central parts of New South Wales, and the GFS kind of in two minds about where it's going to be. And the Eastern Relief has only just come on board with a more sort of southeastern New South Wales rainfall event. So there is still a lot of uncertainty with this forecast, is what I'm trying to say here, and I will be able to give you a much more detailed update this weekend about this forecast. However, just a heads up that it looks like sometime into the later parts of next weekend and into early next fortnight, on Monday and Tuesday the 14th and 15th of October, we could be seeing some rainfall and storms fire up across central parts of New South Wales. Always worth keeping in the back of your head. Now, just before we head over to the United States, we're going to talk about some tropical weather up in the northern parts of Australia. Now, far north Queensland and parts of the Daintree rainforest over the next 10 days do have some more substantial rainfall accumulations coming through, and that's going to be into the later parts of next week, where some showers and storms are expected up there. But again, nothing too crazy. You could be seeing some heavier falls on Monday and Tuesday, up to 50 millimetres of rainfall possible on Monday across isolated parts of far north Queensland around Innisfail and Tully. But again, rainfall just really doesn't want to pipe up there right now, so we're still going to have to wait a couple more weeks for some substantial rainfall to probably come on the forecast and come into fruition early into November for far north Queensland. And it looks to be a similar story across the Northern Territory and WA as well. Already we're seeing rumbles of activity in terms of thunderstorms firing up in the evening hours across parts of WA, which are delivering some good rainfall here and there as well, might I add, and also into the Northern Territory, where once again accumulations have been relatively high for this time of the year for some locations. However, we're just going to have to wait a little bit longer for those substantial rainfall accumulations to really pipe up, but there are rumbles of activity, and the wet season is about to get itself started, as we have been talking about in pretty much every forecast update. And you can probably feel it as well in the air. Warm temperatures across northern parts of Australia, 40 degrees plus in some locations, coupled with high humidity values, are keeping things very warm, and it's only going to warm up as well, getting pretty warm next week too, and into the mid-40s for the first time this summer season across parts of WA next Monday and Tuesday, and potentially even into the mid-40s for parts of South Australia, Queensland and the Northern Territory as well. It's really starting to warm up there, and temperatures are going to get pretty uncomfortable pretty quickly into the later parts of next week. Now, that's the Australian weather scene done. If you do have any questions or comments, or if I've left anything unanswered, then please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Let's head over to the United States now, in the Gulf of Mexico, where we have a monster hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. Major Hurricane Milton is a Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, and by all measurements as well. I mean, take a look at this system here. I'm going to turn the lightning off and just take a look. This is an exquisite structure for a hurricane. Now, it is flipped compared to what it would look like in the southern hemisphere. If this was in Australia, it'd be rotating clockwise. However, this is in the northern hemisphere, so it is rotating anti-clockwise, and that's why it looks a little bit different compared to Australian cyclones. And it looks very different to Australian cyclones purely because of its intensity. Now, this isn't overly strong for the northern hemisphere. We do typically see a storm of this magnitude at least once or twice per year. It's just, compared to southern hemisphere systems, if this was in the Australian basin, it would rank among the top 3 tropical cyclones by wind speed of all time. This beats out severe tropical cyclone Monica by about 10 knots in terms of wind speed, so a substantial difference. And most likely it beats out Cyclone Marcia as well. I'm in hurricane mode in the northern hemisphere. Marcia, which slammed the Cape York Peninsula back in 1899, a massive cyclone that was. But yeah, Hurricane Milton certainly does have more intensification on the way as well, and you can see it here on the satellite imagery coupled with the radar. It is headed across towards Florida, where a devastating landfall is expected in 2 days' time, somewhere around the Tampa to Cape Coral area where at least a Category 4 strength system is expected to make a landfall. That in the Australian scale is a Category 5. We're expecting a system of probably Cyclone Yasi proportions to make a landfall somewhere on the Florida Peninsula between Tampa and Key West in around 2 or 3 days' time. That just gives you a sense of scale in terms of how strong the system is. It is monstrous and very concerning indeed, and you can see the forecast models doing an absolutely appalling job initializing its intensity. Its true intensity is estimated at 897 millibars, which is nearly 100 millibars lower than what the forecast models are suggesting here. 988 millibars is what the Eastern WF is running with. This storm is much stronger than expected and is vastly stronger than what any storm that we've seen in the Atlantic Basin for the past 5 years. It is a true monster of a hurricane, and it is going to cause some pretty significant problems for the United States. It's already causing some significant problems for Mexico, and just thank goodness that it's a small hurricane, and even though it's so close to the Yucatan Peninsula, it isn't causing major problems there at this time, but a very significant storm at that. It looks like it's going to continue intensifying at least for a little bit before an aerial replacement cycle takes place. But yeah, a massive system, that's for sure. Very concerning indeed, and it just shows you what the Gulf of Mexico is capable. Certainly far more stronger and intense storms than what most of the Australian basin is capable of. That's for sure. A very significant system over there. Anyways, that's enough American talk, and that's enough weather talk in general for today. If I have left anything unanswered, then please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get it back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for the support recently on the videos. We're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers, so if you'd like to add to that number, then please do consider subscribing to the channel as well. It's free, and if you don't like the content that I produce, you can always unsubscribe later. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. The names are on screen right now. I could not run this show without them. Their support is amazing. But that is all from me today, and I will catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.